What's coming up on Network Africa today? Dozens of people injured in a fire outbreak at Egypt's police complex in Ismailia. Security forces tear gas opposition candidates leading a protest in Antananarivo. Plus, former Ghanaian First Lady Theresa Kufuor dies at the age of 87. Thank you for joining us on the program. I'm Anne Nwawadu. Let's begin with a look at the major stories that happened over the weekend.
Dear compatriots,
Nigerian President Bola Tinubu on Sunday announced an interim wage increment for low-income workers and mass buses running on gas to ease the impact of removal of fuel subsidy. President Tinubu announced the removal of fuel subsidy in May during his inauguration. In the aftermath, cost of living has soared, and the Nigeria Labour Congress is threatened to embark on an indefinite strike.
based upon our talks with labor, business, and other stakeholders, we are introducing a provisional wage award increment to enhance the federal minimum wage without causing undue inflation. For the next 6 months,
He gave his Independence Day broadcast, Nigeria 63rd. President Tinubu defended the reforms as necessary to put Africa's biggest economy on the path to recovery. He announced that federal workers will get an additional 25,000 naira a month over the next 6 months and increase the amount to 35,000 naira at the end of the day. Migrants rescued off the coast of Libya on the Geo Barents ship arrived at a port in Italy on Sunday. The migrants disembarked from the ship as volunteers from Médecins Sans Frontières clapped. The Geo Barents ship, operated by the medical charity, had rescued a group of 61 men from Bangladesh, Pakistan, Egypt, Nigeria, and Syria from an overcrowded wooden boat. The operation took place in international waters off the coast of Libya, in the central Mediterranean Sea, last Thursday. The group only posted about its operation on Sunday, saying it was now complete. Meanwhile, the Senegalese Navy says it stopped 2 wooden boats carrying 272 will-be migrants, amongst them 7 children and 16 women, and taking them back to a Navy base in the capital, Dakar. The Navy said in an online post on Saturday that the boats were intercepted 100 kilometers off the coast of Dakar. It also released photographs of people said to be will-be migrants disembarking from the boat and sitting on the ground at the base. Thousands of migrants brave the hundreds of miles of ocean separating Africa and Europe each year in a desperate search for a better life. Leader of the Burkina Faso military junta, Ibrahim Traoré, has promised elections will be held once the security situation permits. His comments came in an interview as supporters gathered in Ouagadougou, waving Burkinabe flags. Some even held signs with pictures of the young interim president. Burkina Faso, like its neighbors Mali and Niger, is battling an Islamist insurgency that has killed thousands of people and displaced millions more across the region. All 3 are now run by military officers who took power by force since 2020. Traoré ousted the leader of another coup who had overthrown President Roch Kabore 8 months earlier amidst the worsening security crisis fueled by armed groups linked to Al-Qaeda and Islamic State.
The Health Ministry in Egypt has confirmed that 38 people were injured in a huge fire at a police complex in Ismailia. 24 of them are now being treated for smoke inhalation. 50 ambulances were sent to the headquarters of the Directorate of Security along with 2 military aircraft. There are fears the number of those hurt in the incident could rise.
The huge fire erupted at the facility in the Egyptian Suez Canal in the city of Ismailia early Monday. Video footage showed the city's security directorate building engulfed in flames. 2 witnesses say firefighters on the ground initially struggled to get the fire under control, but local media says that after more than 3 hours, they did manage to contain it. There is no information as to whether there were any detainees at the complex when the fire began. One Egyptian journalist said because of the size of the fire, there could be deaths. There were 50 ambulances at the directorate along with 2 military aircraft on the scene as of this morning. Deadly fires are not uncommon in Egypt due to fire codes rarely being enforced and slow emergency response times. In August last year, a fire caused by a short circuit killed 41 people in a church in Cairo.
The VOA's Edward Iranian joins us now on Network Africa. Hello, Edward. It's great to see you.
Again.
There's not a lot of information about this fire in Egypt today, but can we confirm when it began and how it all began?
Well, I wake up around 3 o'clock and there was already video of the fire at the complex, so it had to have started earlier than that, although the official version was that it started around 4 o'clock, or they were informed about it at 4 o'clock. But information is often not very good in this part of the world, and I think it was mostly something that was looked very much like sabotage. I don't think the media wanted to say that, but that's what it looked like to me, and I've been in Egypt for 15 years.
But one of the journalists at that scene says it is likely there were deaths. I mean, considering the huge fire, it's been hours now since the outbreak. Have any fatality or has anyone been confirmed dead in that incident?
No, not officially, but I wouldn't expect any official confirmation of deaths at this point, and it would be very embarrassing for the government to admit that there were a lot of casualties, if there were. And I can't imagine that there weren't a lot of casualties, given the size of the building and the number of people in there. And to be honest with you, I can't say how many people were in there. I don't know for a fact, but it was a big building. It had a lot of people in it, that's for sure.
But what type of activity takes place on a regular day, like a Monday, in that kind of building, in that kind of complex?
Well, many of the police officers are recruits. They're young police officers. They are there often drafted. Instead of going to the army, they go to the police. And probably many of them were asleep, and the fire probably caught them by surprise, and probably a lot of them were hurt. How many, I can't say for sure, and I don't want the government on my case, to be honest with you. But quite clearly there were a lot of people that were killed, and I guess we'll probably hear about it at some point. Will we hear exact figures? I don't think we usually do in this kind of case, and it's the situation in most Arab countries, not just Egypt, so I wouldn't go blaming Egypt.
Are there other buildings affected by the fire, or is it just the police building that was affected?
Police building is involved.
All right, Edward, I think we'll get back to you because we lost your audio there. But let's still stay in Egypt with another story, but away from the fire. Rights groups are now accusing authorities of torture, saying that it was so widespread and systematic as to amount to a crime against humanity. That report submitted to the United Nations Committee Against Torture features 6 groups speaking out against beatings, electric shocks, sexual violence, and denial of access to medical care by members of the security services. Well, according to them, torture has been used as a political tool to curtail dissent. The new chairman of the United States Senate Foreign Regulations Committee, Ben Cardin, has threatened to block U.S. military aid to Egypt if Cairo did not take concrete steps to improve its record on human rights. All right, let's go back to Edward Hiranian, who is in Egypt, to tell us more about the fire that's happening there. Hello, Edward, are you there?
Yes, yes.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. So we can hear you now. Let's continue with this conversation. Authorities are saying that they will investigate the fire incident, but Egypt has had a fire disaster like this before, a short circuit just last year when it was investigated and they found out it was short circuit that caused it, which led to an inferno, of course, that killed 41 people. How thorough are these investigations usually, and what is the penalty when the results are out? They hold people accountable for this?
Well, if there were massive casualties in various events, people have been executed for responsibilities in various crimes, especially terrorist crimes. Now, if this were a terrorist crime, I think it's very difficult to prove, and it would be very difficult to apprehend those that might have been responsible for it. So my guess is that they probably won't find the culprits, and I suspect it may have been terrorism. I've been hearing people speculated that it was terrorism because this building does have a fire sprinkler system that's pretty advanced. It's not a shoddy building of shoddy workmanship. It's a government building that was fairly well maintained, from what I could tell. So it would seem like someone may have sabotaged the fire sprinkler system. And we've seen things like that happen before, and I think the government probably would be reluctant to say that it was sabotage if it were. But if they ultimately were to find culprits, maybe they would be punished. That's possible.
Edward, before I lost your audio there, we're talking about whether other buildings were affected by that fire, or is it just the police building that was affected?
Well, today the only building was but but this is the political significance of it is that President Sisi is announcing who was his day. So if anyone wanted to sabotage.
All right, Edward, I guess there's something going on today, but hopefully we'll get to you before we end the show. But thank you very much for your contribution on Network Africa. And let's head to Kenya now, where the government has announced that it will close all privately owned children's homes within 8 years, saying that this will partly help end child trafficking. Labour and Social Protection Minister Florence Bor already pointed out at an event on Sunday that over the next 8 years, private homes will not exist in the country. Therefore, there is need to prepare to absorb the children that will come from private homes. She says the process of closing down children's homes and orphanages was already ongoing, and the children in the institutions will be placed in family and community care, which she says offer better environments for these children to thrive. According to insiders, there are more than 40,000 children in about 800 care homes in Kenya, and most of them thought to be privately run. Still ahead on Network Africa. Thought leaders rub minds on raising Nigeria's profile on the global stage as she marks her independence. Please stay with us. Welcome back. Let's head to Madagascar, where security forces and protesters of the opposition candidate running for presidential office have been engrossed in a standoff, the police firing tear gas to disperse the protesters. This is coming amid rising tensions ahead of the presidential elections next month. 11 of the 13 presidential candidates had urged their supporters to march towards the city's central square to protest against what they have described as an institutional coup in favor of the incumbent Andry Rajoelina. But reporters from the AFP news agency says the security forces dispersed the crowd before it reached its destination. In Rwanda, the government has downplayed secretly filming comments by its High Commissioner to Britain that criticized the UK's stance on migration. The government spokeswoman, Yolanda Makolo, defended Rwanda's immigration partnership with the United Kingdom while insisting the current global immigration policies were broken. It came after the campaign group led by donkeys published an investigative piece where Rwandan Ambassador Justin Busingye defended the asylum deal but questioned the UK's moral behind during the meeting in London with a person he told was an Asian businessman seeking to invest in his country. While asked what he will tell the UK Home Secretary about the migrant policy, Mr. Busingye said, "I will tell them they are doing it absolutely wrong. They should have a long-term idea." He also added, so that people do not risk their lives coming to the United Kingdom. In the meantime, the UN Security Council will be voting today on a resolution that will see the international force led by Kenya deployed to Haiti to quell a surge of gangs. The 15-member council is set to develop the framework for and authorize the one-year deployment of the force with a review after 9 months. If approved by the UN, then Kenya will deploy 1,000 police officers to Haiti by January next year. The Bahamas, Jamaica, and Antigua and Barbuda have all said they will take part in this mission. The force will help train Haitian police and rebuild vital infrastructure which have been overrun by criminal gangs. The U.S. has pledged $100 million, that's about 82 million pounds, to help support this mission. Haiti has suffered from gang violence for decades now, but the current wave of brutality escalated after the July 2021 assassination of President Jovenel Moise. Let's come back home to Nigeria. Convener of the Platform Nigeria, Pastor Poju Oyemade, says that faith and religion play a critical role in the development of any nation. He was addressing participants at this year's event here in Lagos. According to Pastor Poju, who is a senior pastor and the founder of the Covenant Nation, he values that have built nations are rooted in religion.
Nigeria is a religious country. You can't get away from it. And the only way you can really transform something is to start with the people from where they are. And what I was going to say and talk about was that the language of faith can be used as a tool for nation building. In fact, President Barack Obama in 2008, when he was speaking to the faith community, talked about the fact that because America back then was also a very religious country, that everybody that brought about some form of transformation used the language of faith. That even when they were going to fight racism, they needed somebody who was a religious figure because it was that language that had to be used for it. Now, the issue is that it shouldn't be used as a tool here, all right, for division. But really, the point of faith here is this, is that the values of society that actually bring about progress, the values of society that have built nations and even civilization itself, are actually rooted in the faith towards God. Those values there. And it's those values we should look at. Values like integrity, values like honesty, rule of law. Even our democratic experience that we talk about today is an expression, it is actually an expression that was taken directly from Scripture. That God is the judge, how God rules, He is the king and the lawgiver.
On the demographic of the young population, which continues to grow in the country and on the continent, Pastor Poju Oyemade says that young people should be continuously trained for public office. He also adds that this year's program, which occurs twice in a year, but this one's focused on Nigeria's independence anniversary, speaks to the core of Nigeria and Africa as a continent.
demographic of Nigeria and Africa, all right, actually it's strong with the youth. That's where the population is. And I believe that young people also should be consciously trained also for public office in terms of occupying positions in public offices there. And to that, we're going to start another boot camp that will be to train people, all right, who want to get interested in occupying public office in future. The conditions are, you must be a Nigerian, all right? Number two, you must be under 30 years of age with proof to show that you are under 30 years of age, okay? All right, under 30 years of age. There will be, the website will be opened on the 1st of November. You can register, all right, under 30, okay? A form of test to be conducted. Between 300 to 500 people will be taken into the boot camp. We'll get best, but we guarantee you this, of professionals, retired permanent secretaries, people who have worked in public service, who understand the protocol, to train the people. And then after that is done, we'll conduct another test and choose the best 30 to 50. And then after that, we'll go and meet our public officials and beg them, all right, that they should allow them to have some internship with them. That internship, let me say this here, the accommodation will be taken care of by us. The salary that they will get will be taken care of by us. All we want is 2 months, it's nothing permanent, 2 months exposure, all right, to public service, so that the younger generation can begin to get engaged in issues of public service and understand how these challenges and how things are.
A wide array of speakers have been on the Platform Nigeria program today, while some have directed their messages to Nigerian youth, whom they say must demand and seize power in various sectors to help create a better future for Africa. South African entrepreneur Vusi Thembekwayo, who was one of those speakers, made this known.
In this moment and in this season, I think as a generation, we are called to truly understand what it's going to take, one and all, to work with each other, but to build with each other. This is, I think, the generational mission of the platform. I said this to my brother, Pastor Pojo, the last time, and I will say it now here publicly, that what has started as the Platform Nigeria, in my mind, needs to be the Platform Africa. It needs to bring together leaders in various spheres and various spaces who are at the frontier of what it's going to take to truly take our continent to next, whatever next might be, and have them in a single platform sharing ideas about what next looks like. In my world, I spend an awful lot of time looking for investment arbitrage, an awful lot of time looking for the ability to buy X and sell at Y in a particular time period, and make sure that my risk, what we would call in finance your risk adjusted for the cost of taking that risk, makes sure that you earn a return that is commensurate to what the investors are looking for. And often one of the things we do as investment professionals is, where we might lack the opportunity to find a true and meaningful arbitrage, is we will invent it just by purely looking at the various countries and citizens and the natures of those countries and where there might be an underweighting one asset class of another. That is to say, rather than meaningfully creating and adding value, we're skimming off the top of the cappuccino and milking the froth. And every time you do, the investors are simply asking the question, is there froth, rather than, have you made a fresh cup of cappuccino?
Gabon's coup leader has held talks with Congolese President Denis Sassou Nguesso as he seeks to end sanctions imposed on the country. General Brice Oligui Nguema has said that his visit on Sunday to Congo-Brazzaville was aimed at strengthening ties with its neighbor and ending Gabon's isolation within the region and globally. This is coming weeks after Gabon's membership of the African Union and the Central African Regional Bloc ECOWAS was suspended after the 30th of August coup. But the ECAS has also moved its headquarters from Gabon to Equatorial Guinea after that coup. Ghanaians are mourning the loss of Ghana's former First Lady, Theresa Kufuor, who died recently at the age of 87. President Nana Akufo-Addo said her warmth, kindness, and grace were exceptional. Mrs. Kufuor was First Lady from January 2001 to January 2009, and she is remembered for her dedicated work in advancing maternal and child care in Ghana. Her advocacy efforts were pivotal in the introduction of a policy providing free childbirth care, which significantly reduced maternal and child mortality rates in the country. Back in 2007, she championed policy reform for the implementation of UNESCO's free compulsory universal basic education program for nursery-age children. Born Theresa Mensah on October the 25th, 1935 in Kumasi, Ghana, she went on to have a fulfilling career as a midwife, and then she earned the admiration of Ghanaians for maintaining a modest profile throughout her 8 years in public life as First Lady. She married former President John Agokome Kufuor in 1962 after they met at the Republic Day anniversary dance in London the year before. And our thoughts and prayers are with the families she left behind. And that's it on Network Africa for today. Thank you so much for watching. I'm Anne Wawadu.